The air in the mountain town of Fairview, Colorado always smelled clean, crisp pine, dry soil, the faint tang of melting snow. But today, Officer Jake Monroe caught something else in it, the weight of memory. He stood next to his cruiser, one hand resting on the roof, the other holding a steaming paper cup of black coffee. His gaze wandered to the tree line across the empty road, where Rex sniffed the underbrush with silent purpose. German shepherds always moved with a kind of grace. But Rex had precision, discipline, pain. Jake knew that look. It was the same one in the mirror every morning. 2 years ago, Jake Monroe was a decorated Marine. One tour too many, one ambush too close. He came home with shrapnel in his thigh, a medical discharge, and a heart bruised by more than bullets. He joined the police force to start over, to serve without the fog of war. But Fairview wasn't just a fresh start, it was an exile. After the Norfolk case, after his partner Tom bled out beside him and internal affairs swept everything under the rug, Jake stopped believing in the system. So he transferred. So he ran. Now here he was. Early shift in a town where the biggest crime last month was a drunk alpaca farmer wandering onto the high school football field. Until now. Got something? He called. Rex froze. Ears up, tail stiff, nose twitching fast. Then he let out a low growl. Jake set the cup on the hood and moved toward him. What is it, buddy? Rex led him through the brush. Not far. Maybe 30 yards in. The undergrowth thinned, and Jake saw the clearing. Grass flattened in strange spirals. No boot prints, no tire marks, just a faint, silvery residue on the edges of the leaves. It gleamed under the morning sun, like oil but thinner, and the smell, acrid, synthetic, almost metallic. Jake wouldn't have noticed it without Rex. But now that it was in his nose, it stuck there. He clicked his radio. Dispatch. This is Monroe. I need forensics at the southern tree line off Pine Hollow Road. Something's not right. By noon, the forensics team had arrived. But they weren't happy. No body, no blood, no real crime scene. What do you want me to do with this? The lead tech, Keller, asked, holding a sealed evidence bag with a single leaf in it. Run it anyway. There's residue. You'll smell it. I do smell it. Smells like an old battery factory. Jake folded his arms. Do we have one of those? Not in this century. The town's police chief, Maria Vasquez, showed up an hour later. She was small but sharp. The kind of woman who could disarm a drunk with a look and quiet a room with a single word. Jake, she said, walking up beside him as the forensics team packed up. This is the third site like this. Jake blinked. Third? She nodded. 2 others. One near Copper Lake. Another behind the old mill. Same weird chemical trace. No signs of struggle. No witnesses. But each one showed up right after a missing persons report. Why wasn't I told? You're new. These cases weren't connected until now. She looked at Rex, who sat at attention beside Jake. He's been picking up the scent at all 3 sites. He's the only reason we even found this one. She paused, then pulled a small notebook from her jacket. Names of the missing. All in their 20s. All locals. Last seen walking home, out jogging, or just gone. Jake took the notebook, flipping through photos. He lingered on one, a young woman with auburn hair, wide smile, and freckles. Anna DeWitt, missing 4 days. Her parents said she never missed a shift at the diner. Jake looked toward the tree line. Something's hunting them. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. Rex paced near the window, ears twitching. Outside, the wind picked up, the kind that whispered secrets through pine needles. Jake sat at the kitchen table with the notebook and a map spread out. He marked each disappearance, each site where Rex had caught the scent. They weren't random, they curved like a crescent moon around the east side of Fairview. A pattern. He grabbed his laptop and pulled up old military case files, classified reports he wasn't supposed to have. A few incidents came to mind. Villages in Afghanistan where people vanished. Chemical traces left behind. No known weapon. No confirmed assailant. The army had blamed it on rogue factions and closed the files. But Jake remembered what the locals whispered, of shadows that moved without form, of sounds in the dark. He looked down at Rex, who stared back with eyes too alert for comfort. "You remember too, don't you?" Rex let out a soft bark. Jake loaded his sidearm. At dawn, they returned to the site. Fog clung low to the ground. Jake wore gloves this time, scanning the grass and trees again, looking for anything they might have missed. Rex moved ahead, then stopped, barked twice, pawed at something under a rock. Jake rushed over and lifted the stone. Beneath it, a silver medallion, scorched around the edges. Jake picked it up with his gloves. It wasn't jewelry. It looked military, foreign. The emblem was unfamiliar. 3 arrows in a circle, like a radiation warning sign twisted into something new. Not standard issue. A chill ran down his back. Before he could examine it further, Rex growled again, louder this time. From deeper in the woods, a low hum rose, not mechanical, not natural. It pulsed, like sonar. Jake reached for his radio, but the signal cut with a sharp burst of static. He and Rex moved toward the sound, careful but fast, and then, just as quickly as it began, the hum stopped. In the sudden silence, Jake noticed the shift in the air. The smell was back, stronger. That chemical sting. Rex barked furiously, nose to the ground, zigzagging through the trees. They came to another clearing. This one wasn't empty. A backpack, torn, straps snapped like someone had been yanked off their feet. A phone nearby, screen cracked but still on. Jake picked it up and saw the lock screen photo, Anna DeWitt. He swept the area, heart hammering. Rex barked once, then fell into a tense crouch. A faint trail of the silver residue led deeper into the forest. Jake holstered the phone and drew his gun. "We're not losing another one." They followed the trail for nearly a mile. The forest grew darker, the trees closer, until they reached a dead zone, an area where birds didn't sing, where not even wind moved the branches. Rex stopped cold. Jake stepped forward, squinting through the undergrowth. A figure stood ahead. No sound, no movement. Jake raised his weapon. "Police, let me see your hands." The figure didn't respond. It looked human, tall, lean, wearing something like a hazmat suit but sleeker. There was no visible face behind the visor, just a dark sheen. Rex barked, lunged, but as he did, the figure turned and vanished. Not ran, not ducked, vanished, like a film frame sliced out of reality. Jake stood frozen. Nothing moved for a full minute. Then Rex whined and turned back. Jake holstered his weapon, heart still racing. He'd seen men disappear in smoke and chaos. But this wasn't war. This was something else. As they hiked back, Jake looked down at Rex. "Looks like Fairview's got secrets too. And whatever had taken those people, it wasn't done. Not even close." The storm clouds hovered low over Fairview that morning, smothering the sky in a steel-gray hue. It hadn't rained yet, but the wind spoke of it, moist, cold, and growing mean. Jake Monroe tightened his jacket and followed Rex through the tall grass just outside the town's industrial outskirts. They were headed to an old supply warehouse, abandoned since 2009. After the logging company folded, locals stayed away, blaming everything from asbestos to ghosts. But Rex had picked up the scent again that morning. Same chemical trace. Stronger. Jake's grip tightened on the leash, though Rex hardly needed it. The dog pulled forward with a hunter's urgency. "Easy, boy. We don't know what's waiting in there." They reached the front doors, one sagging open, the other chained but rusted through. Jake unholstered his sidearm, held it low, and stepped inside. The warehouse was a shell of its former self. Rows of collapsed shelving, broken crates, shattered glass, and scattered papers yellowed by time. Sunlight leaked through holes in the roof, striping the dusty floor with long, pale slashes of light. Rex sniffed once, twice, then led Jake to the back of the building. That's where they found it. A makeshift bed, an old mattress, stained and flattened, food wrappers, a water bottle, half full, duct tape, coiled like it had been cut in a hurry. And there, beside it all, something glinting in the dim light. Jake crouched and picked it up. A broken piece of a watch, scratched and bent. On the inside faceplate, faint but readable, "A. DeWitt." Jake's stomach clenched. He remembered her photo, the girl with freckles and a fire in her smile. This wasn't just a dumping site. Someone had been held here. Recently. He stood, eyes scanning the room for any other sign. Who the hell brought her here? Rex barked once, sharp. Jake turned just as something pinged off the metal beam above him. The bark of a rifle came half a second later. Sniper. Jake dropped to the floor, dragging Rex down with him behind a rusted storage crate. A second shot rang out. Not aimed to hit, aimed to warn. Jake peeked through a crack in the wood, scanning the broken window panes across the upper levels. A glint of glass. Movement. He bolted. Up the stairs. Down the side corridor. Through the office that stank of mildew. But when he reached the upper deck, the sniper was gone. A coil of rope dangled from a broken window. He leaned out, just in time to catch a glimpse. Dark clothing, a long coat, vanishing into the trees behind the warehouse. Jake turned and sprinted down the stairs, cursing under his breath. Rex, the dog, was already at the back entrance, sniffing fast, ears alert. He let out a low growl, then bolted into the trees. Jake followed, ducking branches, leaping roots. The forest floor was soft and wet. Easy to lose a trail. But Rex didn't falter. 100 yards in, Rex stopped, nose down, a drop of blood on a leaf, another on the bark of a pine. Jake knelt and pulled out a glove. He touched the blood carefully. Still wet, still warm. He's hit, Jake muttered, but not bad enough. He stood and looked deeper into the woods. No more footprints. No clear trail. Whoever it was knew how to disappear. But they'd left something behind. And it wasn't just blood. Jake turned the leaf over. There, faint but unmistakable, was the same silvery residue. The same smell, acidic and strange. It clung to the trail like a shadow. He pulled out his phone and called it in. "Chief Vasquez," he said when she answered. "We just got a hell of a break. Someone used the old logging warehouse to hold Anna DeWitt. She was alive, at least until recently. You saw her?" "No, but we found her watch. And someone tried to keep us quiet. Took 2 shots at us. Are you hurt?" "No, but the shooter is." Rex found blood. He ran toward the woods east of the warehouse. There was silence on the line. Then Vasquez spoke carefully. "You think this is the same people who've been making the others disappear?" "I don't know, but this wasn't random. Someone's watching the sites. Someone doesn't want us looking. Come back. We'll regroup." Jake hesitated. "I said come back," Vasquez repeated. "Let's not make this personal." Jake looked down at Rex. The dog's eyes locked on his. Steady, determined. Too late. Back at the station, the air felt heavier than it should. Jake dropped the evidence into the lab bin, handed the blood sample over, then went straight to the board in the briefing room. 6 faces stared back at him from the wall. 6 missing persons, ages 19 to 28. All locals. All vanished in the last 3 months. Jake moved the photo of Anna DeWitt to the center. Next to it, he taped the broken piece of her watch. The forensics techs trickled in behind him. Keller, as usual, was unimpressed. "You know, Monroe," he muttered, "you keep chasing ghosts like this. And someone upstairs is going to start asking what you're really after." Jake turned slowly. "What does that mean?" Keller shrugged. "You've got this intensity. Most people wouldn't chase a hunch into the woods with a sniper on the loose." "I'm not most people." "Yeah, we've noticed." Jake narrowed his eyes. Keller hesitated. "Look, all I'm saying is, not everyone around here likes what you're digging up." Jake stepped closer. "Are you trying to tell me something?" "I'm trying to tell you to watch your back." Keller left. Jake stood there for a long moment. The room empty but for the hum of the vending machine and the low growl of something colder in his chest. Was Keller warning him? Or threatening him? That night, Jake sat in his living room. The lights low. A tumbler of whiskey in one hand. Rex sleeping at his feet. The warehouse. The sniper. The blood. The warning. And Keller's words. He pulled up the department roster on his laptop. Cross-referenced it with patrol logs. searched for names that popped up more than they should have around the crime scenes. 3 officers stood out. All had been first responders to the first missing person case. All had worked the Copper Lake perimeter. All were part of an old special task force from before Jake arrived, Rural Containment Unit. Whatever that meant. One name in particular made his jaw clench. Detective Paul Merrick. Jake had met him twice. Quiet guy. Always polite. But something in his eyes felt too cold. Like he wasn't seeing people. Just assets. Jake clicked through the files. Merrick had military experience. Private contractor. Time overseas. Then he saw something else. Merrick had clearance for classified biohazard training through a federal program Jake had only heard about in whispers. Project Echo. Jake leaned back, heart thudding. Echo, he said aloud. Rex's ears perked up. Jake reached down and ran a hand over the dog's head. You know that word, don't you? In Afghanistan. Jake remembered the rumors. Units that disappeared without explanation. Civilians rounded up for quarantine. Chemical traces. Like this one. Biological weapons no one would confirm. And something else. Something darker. Something they weren't allowed to name. Project Echo. Jake closed the laptop and looked out the window. The clouds still hung heavy. The wind colder now. Whoever was behind this. He was getting closer. But he wasn't sure if that meant he was chasing the truth. Or being lured into the trap. It started like any other late shift. Quiet. Almost too quiet. Jake Monroe leaned against the hood of his cruiser, sipping lukewarm coffee, watching Rex prowl along the curbside with a slow, restless pace. The calm didn't sit right. Not after everything they'd found. Anna DeWitt's watch, the sniper, the warehouse, the chemical trace, the whispered name, Project Echo. And then there was the list. The names Jake had circled last night still burned in his head. Officers with military backgrounds, links to containment units, shared timelines on missing persons calls. One name was scribbled in red ink in the corner. Lieutenant Darren Harper. Jake didn't want to believe it. Harper had been the first guy to welcome him to Fairview PD. They'd bonded over old war stories. Served in the same theater once. Different battalions. Harper had even covered for him when Internal Affairs came sniffing after Jake's last mess in Norfolk. He wasn't just a colleague, he was a brother. But the pattern didn't lie. And tonight, the trap would spring. Jake, you sure about this? Chief Vasquez asked through the radio. Her voice tight. No, Jake said, but it's all we've got. They were waiting behind an old animal control van parked on the edge of town. An anonymous tip had come in claiming a new victim transport was scheduled tonight. GPS data showed the van had made 2 unexplained stops earlier that week, one near Copper Lake. The other outside the old mill. Jake kept his eyes on Rex, who was circling the van. Nose twitching. Rex is getting something, he muttered. Then it happened. A sharp whine. Rex stumbled sideways. Jake was beside him in an instant. Rex, what's wrong? The dog coughed once, then collapsed. Rex. Jake dropped to his knees. His pulse thundered. He checked the gums. Pale. pupils dilating fast, saliva foaming at the edge of the mouth. Poison. He lifted Rex into the back seat of the cruiser and floored it. 2 hours later, Rex lay sedated but stable at the emergency vet clinic. The vet's expression was grim. Whatever it was in the grass. Fast-acting neurotoxin, but traceable. You said he was sniffing near an old van. Jake nodded. We've got the van in impound now. Forensics is tearing it apart. He stepped outside, leaned against the wall, and tried to breathe. Whoever set the trap knew Rex would find something. And they knew Jake would bring him. It wasn't a random attack. It was a message. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Jake picked up. Monroe. A raspy voice. Modulated. Distorted. You're digging where you shouldn't. Walk away. You've had your warning. Click. Jake stared at the screen. He wasn't walking away from anything. Back at the station, forensics had good news and bad. The good? No lethal damage to Rex's organs. He'd recover. The bad? The van had been professionally cleaned. Except for one thing. A micro-sized USB drive embedded in a reinforced collar found under a bench. A dog collar. Jake took it to his desk, locked the door, and opened the files. One video. Low resolution. Night vision. Timestamped 3 weeks ago. A warehouse. Not the one they found Anna in. A different one. Clean. Sterile. Outfitted with crates and transport cages. But not for animals. In the background, muffled voices. Men in uniform. Some wore animal control vests. Others wore police patches. Jake paused the frame. Zoomed. One of the men, tall, square-jawed, turned just enough for the badge to catch light. Jake recognized the tattoo on the side of his neck. Harper. Jake's throat dried. He hit play again. They weren't moving pets. The cages held people, sedated, bound, masked. One girl groaned as they loaded her into a transport unit marked, Live Cargo, Bio-Reg number 22A. The van logo matched the one from earlier. The same van that nearly killed Rex. Jake stared at the screen. Breath shallow. Harper. His friend. His brother. Selling people like animals. Vasquez. Jake said as he burst into her office. I've got proof. Video. IDs. Uniforms. Harper's involved. Maybe more. The chief stood slowly. Show me. He did. When it ended, she said nothing for a long moment. Then, we can't bring this to the department. Not yet. Why not? Because I don't know who I can trust. Jake's jaw tightened. I'm not going through proper channels. She continued. We bring this to internal. They'll bury it. Or worse. Jake stared at her. You think it goes that deep? I think it goes higher than us. This wasn't just human trafficking. This was organized extraction. Federal tags. Medical transport codes. Jake felt the rage pulse again. Project Echo. Vasquez met his eyes. You're not wrong to suspect it. A long pause. Then what do we do? He asked. We bring Harper in. Quietly. Tonight. Jake nodded. I'll do it. It was past midnight when Jake pulled into the gravel lot outside Harper's cabin. No lights on, no movement, but his truck was there. Jake approached the door with a pistol in one hand. Badge in the other. Harper. It's Jake. Open up. Silence. He knocked harder. We need to talk. A creak from inside. Then the door opened. Harper stood in the doorway, wearing jeans, undershirt, and a sidearm holstered. Jake, he said, calm. What's this about? Jake stared. The video. The van. The warehouse. You want to do this here or downtown? Harper's eyes flicked. I figured it might come to this. Why? Jake asked. Why the hell would you be part of this? Harper stepped back. Because I stopped believing we were helping anyone. The system's broken, but there's a market for control. For order. We move them. No one else gets hurt. Jake's voice cracked. They're people. Harper shook his head. They're assets. Collateral. We take the dangerous ones out of circulation. The rest go to better places than where they started. You tried to kill my dog. Harper sighed. I didn't want that. But you weren't supposed to find the van. You were never supposed to get this far. Jake raised his gun. You're done. Harper's hand moved fast, toward his own weapon. Jake fired once. Harper dropped like a stone. Silence followed. Jake walked over, gun trained. Harper wasn't dead, but bleeding. Gut shot. Groaning. Jake knelt beside him. I pulled you out of a crater in Kandahar. He whispered. And you sold people to ghosts in cages. Harper looked up. You still don't get it. Project Echo was never shut down. It went private. Jake's heart stopped. Who's running it now? Harper smiled faintly. Someone you'll never see coming. Then his eyes rolled back. Jake stood and called it in. Sirens wailed minutes later. But Jake wasn't waiting for backup anymore. The past had caught up. The war never ended. It just changed uniforms. The forest was dead quiet. A light drizzle slicked the pine needles underfoot as Jake Monroe crouched behind a moss-covered boulder. His rifle pressed tight to his shoulder. Ahead, shrouded by trees and darkness, was the target, a remote mansion hidden deep in the Fairview woods. Tall fences, heat sensors, and a private helipad on the roof. But this wasn't just a luxury hideout. This was the hub. According to the files extracted from Harper's encrypted drives and the video evidence from Rex's collar. This was where victims were staged before being moved out of the country, packaged like freight under the guise of pet transport. Drugged and tagged. Tonight, that chain would break. Jake touched the mic on his collar. Echo Team. Check in. Bravo. Set on west side. Alpha. Ready at rear perimeter. Delta. We're green. Rex and I are taking point on the south. On my go. The team moved into position. Silent shadows under the trees. Jake looked down at Rex, who sat at his side. Bandaged but steady. The vet said the poison would have killed any other dog. But Rex wasn't any other dog. He'd survived war zones, ambushes, a sniper's bullet, and now he was here. You ready? Jake whispered. Rex gave a soft bark. Low and tight, eyes sharp. Jake gave the signal. Echo Team breached. The explosion blew the south gate open with a thundering roar. Flashbangs rained through shattered windows as units poured in from all sides. Shouts echoed through the estate. Orders barked. Boots hammering wood. and gunfire splitting the air. Jake and Rex charged the front hall, clearing rooms left and right. Dining room, empty. Kitchen, signs of recent use. Basement stairwell, guard with a rifle. Jake dropped him with a controlled double tap. Rex, down. The dog dove low as another shot tore past from upstairs. Jake rolled behind a column, waited for the shooter to reload, then swung out and returned fire. The guard dropped with a cry. Move. They cleared the hallway. 2 more hostiles down. A woman in restraints was found locked in a storage closet, dazed, sedated, but breathing. Then the call came in from Delta Team. We've found the holding cells. East Wing, 3 floors down. Jake bolted. As they reached the lower level, Rex stopped, ears stiff, growling low. Jake froze. A voice called out from the shadows. Don't move, Monroe. Not 1 step closer. It was Harper, alive, armed, and holding a child in front of him, his arm tight around her neck. A pistol pressed to her temple. The girl, no older than 7, trembled, eyes wide with terror. Jake raised his hands slowly. Darren, let her go. You don't have to do this. Harper looked different, gaunt, sweating, desperate, but behind his eyes was something else, resolve twisted into madness. They'll kill me if I talk, Harper hissed. You don't know who's really behind this. You think this place is the top. This is nothing. It's just a node. Jake took a step forward. I'll get you protection. You talk. We can shut the whole thing down. But not like this. Not with her. She's leverage. She's insurance. She's a kid. She's cargo. That was the last word Harper spoke before Rex moved. No bark, no growl, just blur and fury. The dog launched forward, jaws clamping down on Harper's wrist with bone-crushing force. The gun fired, a wild, deflected shot, then tumbled across the floor. The child screamed and dropped to the ground as Harper fell back. Rex on top of him. But Jake saw it before it happened. Harper's other hand reached down. Fast. Knife. He stabbed. Rex yelped, sharp and raw. Jake fired once. Not to kill. A clean shot to the shoulder. Harper collapsed, groaning, the knife clattering beside him. Jake ran forward, kicking the blade away and prying Harper's limp body from Rex. The dog bled heavily from the side. Whining but alive. Rex. No. Stay with me. You're okay. You're okay, buddy. The little girl clung to his leg, sobbing. Delta Team arrived seconds later. Medics swarmed the room. Get him out, Jake barked. Get her out now. Harper, groaning, tried to sit up. Jake turned, gun trained on him. I should put you down right now, he said through gritted teeth. For what you did, for what you are. Harper laughed weakly, blood on his teeth. You think you've stopped anything? This operation's got 10 more heads. And they're already moving the next batch. Midnight drop at Ridgefield Airstrip. Jake tightened his grip. But then he stopped. He looked at Rex, who lay beside him, still breathing, eyes half-lidded but fixed on his partner. Waiting, trusting. Jake lowered the gun. You don't get the easy way out. He cuffed Harper's arms behind his back. Tighter than necessary. then yanked him to his feet. "You're going to talk," Jake said. "You're going to name every name. Or you'll rot in a hole so deep even your masters won't find you." By dawn, the estate was secure. 37 victims were rescued. 6 suspects taken alive. Harper, bandaged and under armed guard, was en route to federal custody. But Jake stayed behind. Rex was loaded into a medical evac van, stabilized but weak. As the medics closed the doors, Jake rested a hand on Rex's head. "You saved her. You saved us all." The dog thumped his tail once. Jake watched as the van pulled away, then turned to Chief Vasquez, who had arrived just after the final sweep. "You did the right thing," she said quietly. Jake didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the trees. Because Harper was right about one thing. The war wasn't over. The drop at Ridgefield was still scheduled. There were more people to save. And Jake Monroe wasn't done yet. The operating room lights buzzed faintly overhead. Outside the glass, Jake Monroe stood motionless, watching the surgeons move around Rex's unconscious body. His fur had been shaved clean where the knife had pierced him. Monitors beeped in rhythms Jake hated. They reminded him of field hospitals, of broken bodies and the helpless pacing of men who'd seen too much and could do nothing. He hadn't spoken in hours. Not since Rex went in. The nurse had told him the odds. The blood loss, the trauma, the complications. But Jake already knew how tough Rex was. He'd been shot at, poisoned, burned, and still charged into danger without hesitation. If anyone could make it through this, it was Rex. But Jake also knew one truth: heroes didn't always come home. A hand touched his shoulder. Chief Vasquez. Her face was calm, but tired. "They're closing him up," she said. "Vitals are steady." Jake blinked. "He made it." She nodded. A long breath escaped his lungs. His knees buckled slightly, but he stayed upright. She gave him a soft smile and left him alone. Jake leaned against the glass. His hand pressed flat. Rex lay still under the sheets, breathing on his own now. "You did it, buddy," Jake whispered. "You made it." 1 week later, the hospital released Rex. The media had already begun circling like hawks. "Hero K9 saves child in anti-trafficking raid" was all over the local stations. Even the national ones picked it up. Jake didn't give interviews, neither did Chief Vasquez. The mission had been bigger than headlines. The Ridgefield airstrip raid had shut down an entire trafficking network tied to a dozen cities. Dozens of victims rescued, dozens of arrests. The FBI and Homeland Security were moving in now. Jake didn't care about the politics. He cared about Rex. The dog had a new scar down his ribs. But his tail wagged when he saw Jake. They rode home in silence. The first real silence Jake had heard in months. Not haunted, just quiet. The Fairview Town Hall hadn't seen a crowd that size in years. Officers, survivors, families, reporters, and residents packed the place wall to wall. A banner hung above the podium. For courage. For justice. For those who answered. Jake adjusted his tie awkwardly as Chief Vasquez took the stage. He hated these things. Medals. speeches, ceremonies. But she had insisted. The mayor handed her a small velvet box. She opened it and held it toward the microphone. "The Fairview Medal of Honor," she said, "is the highest award our department can give. For bravery beyond duty, for actions that save lives, for protecting those who cannot protect themselves." She looked out across the room, and her gaze settled on Jake. "This medal is awarded to Officer Jacob Monroe." Applause erupted. Jake walked slowly to the front, every step echoing like boots in a hangar. The crowd stood, some cheering, others simply clapping, hands over hearts. But Jake didn't take the medal from her hand. He turned and knelt beside Rex, sitting at attention near the podium. "Come here, partner." Rex stepped forward, tail still, alert as ever. Jake opened the box, pulled the medal from the cushion, and carefully looped the ribbon around Rex's neck. A hush fell over the room. Jake rose to speak, but his voice caught. He glanced down at Rex, who looked up with steady, loyal eyes. He took the first hit. Jake said, "He found the missing. He kept me alive. And he saved that little girl." The words hung heavy. "This is his medal," Jake finished. "And I'm just the guy lucky enough to walk beside him." The crowd erupted again, but softer this time. Not roaring, just warm, honest. A standing ovation for a dog who never spoke, never hesitated, never wavered. That evening, with the crowd gone and the sun low in the sky, Jake parked his cruiser at the top of Chapel Hill. It overlooked all of Fairview, church spires, brick buildings, golden fields, the stretch of pines beyond. He climbed out, Rex following close, still moving slower than before but walking on his own. They sat side by side on a bench beneath an old oak. The medal still hung from Rex's neck. Jake didn't say much. He didn't need to. Rex rested his head against Jake's thigh, eyes half closed. The sky lit up in orange and lavender as the sun dipped behind the mountains. The town lay quiet, no sirens, no screams, no smoke, just peace. Jake breathed it in, for the first time in what felt like years. His shoulders loosened, the weight began to lift. He reached down and scratched behind Rex's ears. "You did good," he said. "We both did." The wind rustled the trees gently, like the forest itself had exhaled. Jake leaned back and looked out across the land he had nearly given up on. Fairview had been broken, but now it was healing. He didn't know what came next. Whether the larger network would be dismantled, whether more ghosts from Project Echo would rise. But whatever battles lay ahead, Jake and Rex would face them together, side by side. He watched the last light of day fade into stars, and thought, there are heroes who wear medals. There are heroes who make speeches. And then, he looked at Rex, breathing quietly, eyes on the horizon. There are heroes who never say a word, who only watch, listen, and act.
Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please comment 1. And if you didn't, just hit like. See you in the next videos.